Today, I want to talk about how some of the votes for the AMC reverse split are going missing. I want to explain why these brokers and market makers are hiding these votes on purpose and what you can do about it. So stay tuned and let's make some money. And now I want to dive straight in with the key information. So, Great TV Podcast tweeted saying if some of your proxy votes are missing, it's because you were sold synthetic shares. They said the proxy vote is nothing more than a share count. The proxy votes will expose millions of synthetic shares. He said the shorts are shaking in their boots. Now, obviously, it's not your fault if you've been sold synthetic shares, and you will still be able to sell those synthetics during the squeeze. And it's not necessarily the fact that you hold synthetic shares which is the problem here. It's the fact that these brokers and market makers are actually trying to hide some of the proxy votes. Because obviously if there's 2 billion AMC shares that are voted on during this reverse split vote and say 4 or 5 billion APE shares, there's clearly a problem. And therefore these brokers and market makers are effectively trying to hide some of your shares or hide some of your votes because obviously it would expose the synthetics. But how do we actually know that this is happening and what exactly can you do about it? Well, Matt tweeted at Adam Aaron asking if this is the correct way. He said both APE that was issued and AMC that he held and new APE shares that he purchased are all being handled under the same CUSIP number. He asked a Weebull saying, why doesn't my AMC split dividend, aka my APE shares, have a separate CUSIP number? He said it also doesn't have a specific issue dated price point. He asked, are they being lent out even though he has lending turned off? Weebull replied saying that APE shares are issued from the AMC shares, so APE is using the same CUSIP number as AMC. And he also confirmed that his APE shares were not being lent out. But if anything, that creates even more of a problem, because his old issued APE shares and his newly purchased APEs and his AMC shares are seemingly all sharing the same CUSIP number. As you can see, his AMC shares have the CUSIP number 00165C, and his APE issued shares also have the exact same CUSIP number, 00165C. And he said his question is, how would these brokers handle excess votes on one stock and an undervoted number of votes on another stock? For example, if we had 2 billion AMC votes, but 0 APE votes, would they not just simply combine them? Now, it's likely that is what Weebull are doing, but obviously that is the completely wrong thing to do because AMC and APE should have separate CUSIP numbers. Or could these brokers even be turning these excess votes into simply a percentage of a vote, instead of one equity equals one vote? So he's asking the question, is Weebull not reporting 1 billion votes for yes and 1 billion votes for no? Is Weebull simply reporting 50% voted yes and 50% voted no? Because that way Weebull is only reporting a percentage of votes rather than a specific number of votes. Well, Janjak replied saying, my guess is they do it that way to avoid justifying the fact that there exists way more APE shares than were issued by AMC. And he said this is the aspect of our fight that we must pressure AMC and Adam Aaron to tackle on our behalf. For example, we know there's tons more AMC shares out there than what should actually exist because of all the synthetic shares that have been created. And if these brokers are hiding our votes or miscounting our votes or simply reporting a percentage of votes instead of the exact number of votes, that obviously hides the existence of synthetic shares to AMC and the AMC board. But what exactly can we do if our AMC votes are being hidden or not counted correctly? Well, Donahue George suggests that we should send evidence to the SEC and to the Department of Justice and to demand an investigation. Now, while I do think this is a good idea, and while we should send letters to the SEC and the Department of Justice and the FBI and anyone else that would listen, I think we need to go one step further. We know these brokers didn't issue APE shares correctly in the first place, and that's why we had so many FTDs. And therefore, I don't really trust these brokers to recall the APE shares correctly, or even to vote on the APE shares correctly. Many of us did submit letters to the SEC and to the Department of Justice when APE was issued, and seemingly nothing was done. And therefore, I do think that Janjak here is spot on the money, and we must pressure AMC's board and Adam Aaron to tackle misreporting of votes or the misissuing of AMC shares on our behalf. For example, if the CUSIP number on AMC and APE is not changed when the new AMC shares are issued, or if they don't count our votes correctly, AMC have to deal with it. And I think especially if the CUSIP number doesn't change, we have actual factual evidence of the CUSIP number not changing, and therefore AMC would have to do something about it. Adam Aaron obviously tweeted saying he can only make credible decisions and only speak on things when there is 100% factual, credible evidence. And obviously if the CUSIP number doesn't change, that is credible and plain for all to see. And I think at that point, Adam Aaron would have to do something about it. Whether he goes to the SEC or to the Department of Justice, or whether he recalls the AMC shares himself, I don't know exactly what he will do, but I do think we should pressure AMC and Adam Aaron. Now, Tony Denaro also tweeted saying that your vote matters. Whether you want to vote yes or vote no, either way, I do heavily believe that you should vote. And he said that in 2022, barely half of the AMC shareholders actually submitted votes. The 2022 report says that a total of 268 million out of 516 million eligible shares of the company's common stock were actually present and voted on. And I think this really means that the yes-no vote really could go either way. Obviously, if half of the shares weren't even voted on, your decision or your vote could make the difference between yes or no. And when you are voting, as NFT tweeted, he said, message to Fidelity people, make sure your vote says voted and not voted confirmation pending. And he said if it does say pending, re-click and resubmit your vote, because that happened to him last vote also. So if you do have a Fidelity account, instead of it saying voted confirmation pending, you need to go back in and resubmit your vote again until it says voted. Again, just potentially another way that these brokers are trying to hide our votes or miscount our votes. And whichever way you do end up voting, I really think you should read this tweet from Simulation. He said, imagine you go to the casino. You're up a few $100s, and the casino manager says, sir, would you like me to give you 5 $100 chips instead of 100 $5 chips? Simulation said yes, he probably would like the 5 $100 chips because it's the same value and it makes it easier for him as there's less chips to carry. And he said there is no difference in the AMC reverse split as well. Whether you have 1.5 billion AMC shares in total or 150 million, it's still the exact same because the company is still worth the same money. The number of shares changes and the price of the stock changes as well, but the company is still worth the exact same amount in total. And therefore, when AMC squeezes and goes from a $2 billion market cap to a $20 billion, $200 billion, or a $2 trillion market capitalization, whether the reverse split has happened or has not happened, the result will effectively be the same. So basically what I'm saying is that when considering the likelihood of AMC squeeze prices, we shouldn't really be paying attention to numbers inside the table here. We should only really be looking at the prices down the side here. For example, we should only be looking at AMC's market cap pre and post squeeze, whether it's going to be $2 billion, $20 billion, $200 billion, or $2 trillion. Because you may be looking at the table and saying, wow, Tom, $13,000 per AMC share actually sounds quite unrealistic compared to $1,300 per share pre-split. But actually, when you look at the market cap is still the same at $2 trillion pre-split or post-split. It really doesn't make a difference. If anything, $13,000 post-split is actually easier to get to than $1,300 pre-split because there'll be less shares available for sale for these hedge funds to buy. Obviously, when a hedge fund needs to close out of their short position, they need to buy AMC shares. If there's no AMC shares for sale post-split because there's such a fewer amount of shares in circulation, it's actually harder for them to close their shorts. If anything, it's actually easier to reach $13,000 post-split than it would be to reach $1,300 pre-split. And I also wanted to quickly dispel some FUD that you may have seen in AMC's recent filing. You may have seen that it says 517 million AMC shares are only held by 16,000 shareholders, and the 929 million apes are only held by 14,000 shareholders. You may be saying, Tom, wasn't there 4 million individual shareholders as quoted by Adam Aaron? And the answer is actually still yes. You have to remember that if you're holding your shares in, for example, TD Ameritrade, every single TD Ameritrade user isn't counted as an individual shareholder. Only TD Ameritrade, the brokerage, is counted as that one shareholder. As Tom tweeted, he said only brokers and those who DRS their shares actually have their shares stored in their personal names instead of on street name. He said all other shareholders that are holding shares in a brokerage account fall under those brokers and are not counted as individual shareholders but simply placeholders. This is the exact same thing that is shown in AMC's recent filings over the last few years, and if anything, this number is actually slowly increasing. There are still 4 million shareholders, it's just not shown here because a whole brokerage is only counted as one individual shareholder. But guys, be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. And as always guys, be sure to ding that notification bell because that way you'll be alerted when I upload a new video. Cheers.